Hello, welcome back to the channel guys, and today just a quick video really, just to have a little talk about the new Chaos Army that I've decided to start. And I've decided I'm also going to get involved in another one of those painting challenges, and this time it's the Call of the Crown painting challenge. So really looking forward to it, and I've got to get myself a little bit of inspiration ready to take on the challenge. So here we are today. Just going to have a quick flick through this 4th edition Chaos Warhammer Army book. Maybe have a little look at some of the White Dwarfs as well, from around the same period. And yeah, get a little bit of inspiration ready to start the army. So yeah, here we go. Let's have a look. I mean, let's start with the front cover, obviously. I mean, look at that. What a piece of artwork that is. I'm sure it'll tell me who's responsible for that. Cover art, Jeff Taylor. There we go. Absolutely amazing. They just don't make them like this anymore, do they? Yeah, so inside, I mean, we get straight in there with the army shots. I mean, brilliant armies. The studio did such a great job on it. Considering that it's painted by, you know, several different painters of the time, it just looks so good altogether. So yeah, we've got like a bit of a mixed army at the top there, a bit of everything, and then on this one it's a bit of a battle scene where it's looks like a Nurgle army facing off against some Empire. Yeah, sorry about that reflection on the light, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, that's better. Yeah, so this one was written by Rick Priestley as well, at the time where I think Rick did a lot of the army books, and this one's no different. So we've got black and white art by John Blanche, Wayne England and Mark Gibbons. That's the classic sort of, I think that's a corn. Is that a corn icon? You have to forgive me, this is slightly before my time of getting into Games Workshop, so I'm delving into a time before my own, and just going off some knowledge that I've picked up over the years, although I wasn't actually there. So yeah, so contents page, well, we're going to go through it all anyway, so let's take a look. Introduction. Yeah, I read through this the other night, and it just gives you a quick sort of overview of what Chaos is all about, how the armies are made up and split into the 3 different types, where you've got the Beastmen, the Warriors and the Demons, that all come together to make up potentially one sort of great big Chaos mixed force. Yeah, so nice piece of artwork there. I presume that's black and white, so that one must be a John Blanche piece. So detailed, you know. I'd love to see that in colour as well. If it was ever produced in colour, I don't know, but it'd be fantastic to see if it was. And you can see why the sculptors did such a great job when they've got artwork like this to go from. The Chaos Gods, yeah, so this is just a few pages explaining about the 4 different Chaos Gods and what they're all about. Obviously you've got Khorne, which is the Blood God. And you've got Tzeentch, which is the God of Magic, a Master of Mutable Time Stream. Whatever that means, but it sounds good. Nurgle, which is the Lord of Decay. And Slaanesh, a bit of a mark on my book there. That's the trouble with buying second-hand books that are 30 years old. Slaanesh, the youngest of the Chaos Gods, known as the Prince of Chaos. Yeah, so Slaanesh is seductive, as only an immortal can be. Very exciting. I think actually out of the 4 Chaos Gods, I think Slaanesh is probably my favourite aesthetically. I love the Slaanesh models, the demon models, yeah. I mean, I like them all, but Slaanesh is probably just out there as my favourite. Probably my least favourite, Nurgle, I would say, just because they seem like they might be quite slow on the battlefield, and I'm not sure about the colour schemes are maybe a little bit more limiting. Obviously, doing a lot of like decay and stuff is normally your greens and your browns. So, I mean, I'm forcing myself to pick a least favourite here, but I mean, I love them all, so I can't wait to get started on them. Right, next we've got the Chaos Champions page, which just explains about how, you know, warriors are selected to become champions, and then they end up with mutations and all sorts of strange things going on. But I mean, look at the amount of lore we've got in here already, and we're only sort of page 8 pages in, and we've already got tons and tons of lore here. Again, they just don't, you know, they don't make them like this anymore, do they? Mark of a champion. The champion's reward. Yeah, very good. So, the Children of Chaos. So this is explaining about all the different arms of the Chaos Force. So you're starting off with the Beastmen here, and the Minotaurs, and the Centaurs, which unfortunately Centaurs kind of got phased out a little bit, didn't they, in the 5th edition, which is my preferred edition of playing Warhammer. But yeah, it's a shame that they didn't stick around for later editions. Although I think they sort of came back when the Beastmen got released as a separate army and sort of remade as Centaurs, which is similar type thing, I suppose, but not quite the same. And you've got the Dragon Ogres, which are fantastic models in this era. Absolutely love those Dragon Ogres, and yeah, I've got plenty of those to paint up eventually. Although I'll probably leave those when I do the Beastmen side of the army, and I'll probably paint them up then. I'll have to see how the challenges pan out for the Call of the Crown and how it's set out, and if it requires like a big monstrous type unit of some sort. Maybe I'll do the Dragon Ogres as part of that. We'll have to see. The Nameless Creatures. I don't know what they are. What are they? Let's have a quick read. Chaos is great and marvellous in its variety, and the natural world cannot compete with the bizarre diversity of form and the touch of chaos brings. Beastmen, Minotaurs, and the creatures described here are but some of the misshapen monstrosities that Chaos has created. There are other creatures which show clear evidence of the mutation that Chaos brings, such as Skaven, haha, my favourites, Manticores, Chimera, and Griffins. Even humans are not free of the taint, and there are many mutants lurking undiscovered in the lands of the Empire. So, I still don't know what they're talking about, really. The Nameless Creatures. I'm looking for a name, but, you know, the clue is in the Nameless Creatures, so there isn't going to be a name there, is there? Anyway, moving on. Chaos Gifts. So that, obviously, is explaining about the gifts and the cards that came in the little box set during this era. I think they're basically just magic items, aren't they? But more chaotic, and renamed in order to fit in with the whole aesthetic of chaos. So champions and chaos gifts, that's just explaining how that works. Obviously your champions get given chaos gifts in the same way that champions would normally get given magic items. And I think you still get to pick what the chaos gifts are. You're not necessarily limited to having them randomly given out, although that would be more chaotic, wouldn't it, if they were just random gifts. But I think they do come with a points cost associated with them, so it would make it quite tricky, I suppose, to get your army balance right and come in on the points restrictions. So yeah, a bit more about the chaos gifts. Eye of the God test, so I presume you've got to take some sort of test if you have a certain chaos gifts. Something I'll have to look into when I delve into the more specifics of how Chaos Armies work. But for now, I'm just sort of looking for inspiration on the painting side of it, really, and how I'm going to progress with that. So Gifts and Demons, obviously there's some... Chaos Gifts cannot be used on demons, but only on mortal creatures. So there you go. If we go for a demon-heavy army, then Gifts won't play such a big part, I wouldn't have thought. Chaos Magic Items. Okay, so... Chaos Gifts. I see, so I've got that wrong then. So the gifts are like the mutations then. And they are more random, I believe. Yeah, the card deck is used to determine random bonuses for your army. So yeah, so when you have a Chaos Champion, he normally has some sort of gift that goes with that, depending on how high up the ranks he is, depends on how many Chaos Gifts he gets. and hence that's why you have the Eye of the God test there. And then, see, because I should have read on a little bit, and then I would have realised that I was talking rubbish before, but yeah, Chaos Magic items, these are the rewards, and basically, like I was saying before, that replaces the magic items for the Chaos Armies. There's a small bit there at the bottom about familiars, which I don't know anything about yet, and I don't actually have any familiars as I'm aware, so I suppose I can skip that bit. Chaos Armour, very powerful as far as I'm aware. It's one of the most powerful armours in the game, so I look forward to equipping my units with that. Chaos Banners, look at them. Absolutely brilliant. That's that symbol from the front page, I believe. The corn, I'm sure that's a corn icon. Maybe it was more generic chaos in this era. Oh well, it says there, corn banners. So there you go. Chaos Warrior banners, the Chaos Knight banner, Nurgle banner, Beastmen banners, and Chaos Knight banners. Fantastic. Not sure what I'm going to do about the banners yet. I might digitally colour those in and then print them out, or I might print out a black and white copy and paint them by hand maybe this time. I'll have to see. I haven't decided on that yet. Here, well, now we're into the colour pages, so we've got Slaanesh, the Prince of Chaos. I'm not sure how I feel about that colour scheme, actually. I don't know if I like the yellow boot and the black boot. I mean, it looks great, but I'm not sure how well it'll fit in with the rest of the Slaanesh force. Or maybe I'll do something a bit more unified. But that champion of Slaanesh is awesome, and I've got him, so really looking forward to painting him up. Certainly wouldn't mind copying the studio scheme on him, or her, whatever it is. So moving on, we've got Khorne the Blood God, and yep, I've got that Bloodthirster, but with a different head. Possibly the other body, I don't know, I can't remember, but I'll take a look at the miniatures in a future video and we can see. We've got that Champion of Khorne, which I don't think I've got him. I do have a different Champion of Khorne though, so I'm pretty sure I've got a champion from each of the different arms of the Chaos Gods. But he's one I don't have, although he is cool. I do like him. Moving on. I've got Nurgle. So, classic Plague Bearer. Possibly these must have been the second edition of Plague Bearers, actually, not the original first edition ones. And yeah, not quite as luminous bright green as the normal Plague Bearer scheme for that particular one there. Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle and Familiar. So that looks like a Nurgling to me rather than a Familiar, but maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I could use one of my Nurglings as a Nurgle Familiar. And yeah, that champion's like so iconic. He's absolutely awesome. But again, I don't think he's the one that I've got in my collection. I've perhaps got a different Nurgle champion. And there's a Plague Bearer in a slightly different colour scheme. Interesting blue and red. I'm not sure if I'll go that route or not. Do quite like it, but it doesn't really scream pestilence and decay to me, being a sort of almost regal blue. He is there, like a purpley blue. Interesting. I suppose the beauty of Chaos is that you're not really limited to a certain scheme, are you? You can pretty much go however you want with it. So, yeah, we'll see. Great Unclean One, the Greater Demon of Nurgle. Now I do have him, so I could copy that studio scheme for him. Fantastic. A unit of Plague Bearers. So I mean, we've got loads of different colour schemes going on here. Right mishmash of pinks and purples, greys and greens. I think out of all of those, I really quite like the luminous kind of green, the same as this Great Unclean One here. That's a cool icon there as well. I might have to copy that for a banner, same as that one. So, the next page, Tzeentch. So at the top we've got there Champion of Tzeentch with a massive pink horror hand and a great big oversized sword. Not sure what head that is, like a bone skull head, like a bird head almost. I wonder if he's got a bird tail behind him as well. Again, I don't have that one. I don't think I've got a different champion of Tzeentch. I believe I've got a sorcerer on flying disc, but it's not that flying disc and it's not that sorcerer. I think I've got the moonhead guy with a staff, but that could still act as a good bit of inspiration being yellow. I think every moonhead has got to be yellow, hasn't it? Yeah. Then we've got the Changer of Ways, Greater Demon of Tzeentch. What a brilliant model. Mine's really sort of back heavy because he's all mounted on this single point here. I've had to put a great big lump of blue tack on the front. Not permanently, but just to keep him upright in my box whilst he's being stored. Yeah, I've also got the Marauder version of this demon, which was made slightly before, maybe, and then Marauder got absorbed into Games Workshop quite soon after, and then they remade all 4 demons, and this was the remake. But the original Marauder one's got the old jazz hands, which I really like. So I'll have to show you that perhaps in the next video. So down here we've got another battle scene where it looks to be a Tzeentch army with a nice, is that a herald or demon prince maybe? I don't know what you would call him. Maybe just a sorcerer in this edition. And the pink horrors that double up and turn into blue horrors when you kill them, which is a great little rule. I really like that. And they look like they're facing off against a little dwarf army there. Some dwarf slayers. Look at that greater demon there. He just looks awesome, I think. Really intimidating. With his hands up and his neck low. And the wings all spread out. So. Now we're on to the Beastmen page, which I don't think I'm going to do the Beastmen at the same time as painting the rest of the Chaos Army. I think I'm going to perhaps leave those for a later date because I don't want to get overwhelmed, and because the Chaos Army is massive, you know, there's so much selection there, and I think to paint everything all at once is going to take me at least a couple of years, so I'm going to have to split it down into the 3 different factions maybe, and do the warriors or the demons first, and then move on to the Beastmen later. But I mean, I love the bright colour schemes on these guys. They're not like the later versions where they're all dark and dingy. This is much preferred to me, which is why I like this era so much. It's the bright, you know, the bright reds and blues that all pop out, the goblin green bases, which sadly got lost in later times. And yet we've got more Beastmen there. I do own all of those Beastmen, I believe. I think I've got all of those on that page as well. Definitely got the Shamans and the Champion. A standard bearer or 2 and a couple of musicians, and I've definitely got that champion. Yeah, I think I've got all of those. And there's a little army shot of mixed. I mean, I don't think you'd ever have a Bloodthirster and a Greater Demon of Slaanesh in the same army unless you were playing a huge points game. I think they're like, by the time you've added the extras on, they're nearly 1,000 points a go, aren't they? So almost an army in their own right in one character. So yeah, and then they've got like a Beastman unit at the bottom there. Now, moving on to the Chaos Knights. And yep, I've got those guys. And there's some colour versions of the banners that are shown earlier on. Are they the same banners or are they perhaps different? No, I think they're the same. Yep. Well, same or similar. I'd have to do a side-by-side and see. But yeah, I've got one of each of those Chaos Knights. I think they're going to be really hard to paint. Those big smooth surfaces on the back, on the horse armour, the Chaos armour. Barded steeds, as it were. I'm not sure if I'll do exactly the same colour scheme, but they look very sort of Cornish, don't they, in that red and gold colour scheme. There's a battle shot there again. This time it looks like an all-Khorne army, with all the warriors painted heavily red. And yeah, like I say, that colour scheme obviously fits well in with a Khorne-themed army. I'm not sure, maybe I'll... you could probably get away with having them as undivided if they were painting that colour scheme, so I might stick to the studio one for them. We will see. Aha, Dragon Ogres. absolutely love those models. They are brilliant. Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm probably going to have to maybe leave those for when I do the Beastmen, rather than painting them with the warriors or the demons. But it all depends, I suppose, how my army will be without, by limiting some of these faster cavalry units and heavier hitting forces. I have a feeling I might be limiting myself a bit too much if I don't include those. But I mean, I'm looking forward to painting them either way, so who knows, I might get excited and paint them anyway. Another little army shot there at the top, which is a mixture of Beastmen and I think is that a Beast of Nurgle or some sort of conversion? It's like a half a Beast of Nurgle with a sorcerer or a champion head on it. If you can see him. So cool though, isn't he? And look at those Beastmen with the bright blues and reds on there as well. They look fantastic to me. And a unit of Beastmen down at the bottom there as well. And then we've got the Dragon Ogres in all their glory, in a little army shot there, along with a Bloodthirster. Chaos Mutations Modelling Guide by Mike McVeigh. So this is teaching you how to convert up the models to make them fit aesthetically with some of the Chaos gifts and Chaos rewards that are available. So they're showing you there how they sort of used one model. They used the warrior from Talisman to sort of make an extra arm for this Beastman, and they used his head and upper torso on this. Is that a wolf? Is that a wolf rider? I'm sure it explains in the blurb. Yeah, great. And that's that beast from the previous page. That's this guy. And they're short. Mike McVeigh's teaching you how he went about making that conversion, or whoever it was that did it. Okay, then we've got the Chaos Sorcerer of Tzeentch, which I said might be a herald. There you go, that answers that question. And a Chaos Champion conversion, giving him a tail from a Chaos Hound on a Nurgle Champion, I think that is. Do I have that Nurgle Champion? Possibly, I might have him. Chaos Dragon. Now, this is, of course, the time before Egrim was produced, so this was kind of, I suppose, an early prototype that Mike had made here, showing you all the step-by-steps of how to acquire all the parts from the dragons and make yourself your own twin-tailed, twin-headed? Is it twin-headed, this one? No, single head, but with a demonette converted rider by the looks of it. So cool. Obviously a few months later, or soon after, the Egrim came out and this article was kind of defunct, unless you were particularly keen on making your own version of a Chaos Dragon with a Chaos Champion on board. Very good. And there he is in a little army shot, facing off against the High Elves, I believe. Then we've got the Great War Against Chaos, which is a nice little story there. Bit of background. Goes on for a few pages. Chaos Spawn, got its own little entry there, telling you all about that. Another little story on this page. I mean, there's just so much filler in this, as it were, but you certainly got your money's worth with these old army books. And now we're moving on to the Chaos Demons section. So it's telling you about the demon saving throws, demon animosity. If you've got different types of demon in your army, then they don't always get along. So you've got to, much like the Orcs and Goblins have the animosity test, so do the demons. However, I've got a feeling that the consequences might be a bit worse for Chaos Demon armies compared to the Orcs and Goblins version. You've got a small part there about demon magic and how that works. And demon units, they can also take magic sometimes, depending on the on the demon unit in question. And about raising demons. So some magic allows you to raise units of demons, which is interesting. And then we're on to the Chaos Bestiary, however you like to pronounce it. So starting off with the Chaos Warriors, and their marks of chaos and how that affects them. Chaos Sorcerers, same again with the marks of chaos and how that affects them. Beastmen, which is going to be later on for me. Same with the Minotaurs, they'll come in with the Beastmen as well. Chaos Steeds, which are ultimately expensive and powerful. Chaos Dragon. And the Harpies, which we've not heard any mention or seen any pictures of. I've got a unit of them. I think they'll be fun to paint. They'll probably go in with the Warriors. Chaos Centaurs, again. Not sure whether they're going to go in with the Warriors or maybe the Beastmen part, but I've got Centaurs as well from the later version, so perhaps I'll put the Centaurs in with the Warriors part and leave the Centaurs to go with the Beastmen. Chaos Gorgon. Now that's something that you don't really hear of anymore, and I don't know anything about them. I've never seen a model for them. Much long before my time they made models for that, so I can't picture it in my head of what they actually are or what they look like, so that's something for me to look into. Then we've got the Dragon Ogres and all their special rules. Wow, look at that, for a set of special rules. A lot to remember with them. I certainly won't be taking them out on my first battle, because I won't know what on earth I'm doing with them. They're going to take a bit of practice. Chaos Hounds, I think that's a staple for any Chaos army. You've got to have those Chaos Hounds, fast moving and relatively cheap compared to the rest of the army. Trolls, which again I always kind of associated with Orcs and Goblins rather than Chaos, but it seems like you can get the Stone Trolls or the River Trolls. Another mark on my book there, look, unfortunately. But these are the problems with old books. Lots of special rules for those guys as well, depending on which type of troll that you pick. So maybe I'll have to look into them a bit more, make a decision about what I'm going to do. Chaos Demons, so looks like they're going to do them in order of gods. So we've got all the Khorne demons to start with, starting with the Bloodthirsters, and look at that stat line. 6, 10, 10, 8, 7, 10, 8, 10, 10. More 10s than a Olympic gymnastics competition. There you go. Juggernauts of Khorne. Again, these, I've got the originals for these. Fantastic models, really looking forward to them. That's what makes me want to paint Khorne. First of all, to be honest with you, is the thought of painting up those Juggernauts. Look like the old Chinese, when you get like Chinese restaurants, sometimes they have like the big dragons outside and the, well, like those Juggernauts. I think that's where the inspiration must have come from for them. Yep, so, Bloodletters of Khorne. Again, relatively cheap compared to most of the other demons, but still hard hitting and very interesting. They've got the Hellblades, which do what, D3 wounds, do they? Yeah. So I've got a unit of them, that'll be good. Fleshhounds of Khorne, I've got a unit of them. They're another must if you've got a Khorne army. I think if you're going to do a themed army like that, you've got to have sort of one of everything for the demons to give yourself that select like variety for when you're facing different forces, you know, to swap things out when you need to. But yeah, lacking in magic, obviously the Khorne themed armies, so it does mean you've got to make up for that somehow with fast moving units and hard hitters. So that's where the Fleshhounds of Khorne come in, being immune to magic, I believe, or certainly have magic resistance because of those Fleshhound Collar of Khorne. So yeah, so spells cast against them are automatically dispelled and will not work, even if cast with total power. That sounds very overpowered to me, but I'm sure there's a downside. What we got next then? So, the Keeper of Secrets, Greater Demon of Slaanesh. Probably my favourite of the Greater Demons. My favourite of the demons overall, Slaanesh. Demonettes of Slaanesh. Yep, I think we've all seen those before. And this era, I really like the sort of human coloured skin and bright red claws that they have. And I think you make them even better if you mount them on the old Steeds of Slaanesh, which I've also got. So, yeah. And then you've got the Fiends of Slaanesh, which are like giant crab-like weird things, which are absolute nightmare to rank up, as I found out when I was building mine. But, having said that, still great models. And again, I like the big red claws and the colourful purpley blue kind of bodies, pinky bodies sometimes they have. Was there any pictures of Fiends in this? Maybe they hadn't quite been released yet when this this book was printed, so we'll see if there's any a bit later on. Then we're on to the Great Unclean One, Greater Demon of Nurgle. Yeah, causes terror, unsurprisingly. He's got the Steam of Corruption. I'm sure he's very hard to beat once he gets into battle, but movement 4 means he's probably taking 4 turns to get into combat, especially if the enemy are avoiding him. So, yep, Beasts of Nurgle. I've got a few of them. Very expensive to buy now, so they took me a long time to get. But, yep, I've got one from this sort of 4th edition era, and then they released a new one not long after this book came out with the wavy tentacles on the top. That's not quite as nice, I don't think, actually. I prefer the earlier one. But I've got one of the earlier ones and 2 of the later ones, which I'll show you in another video when I go through the Chaos Army. Plague Bearers of Nurgle. Yep, they're a staple in any Nurgle army, I'm sure. You've got to have them to make your points up. And Nurglings. Hopefully quick and easy to paint, because a lot of the other stuff is not. That leaves us with the Lord of Change, Greater Demon of Tzeentch. Again, not quite as many 10s as a Bloodthirster, but he's got a few. And I'm sure very powerful with the magic. I reckon Tzeentch must have the best spells if you use the Tzeentch deck out of all of the Chaos gods. Discs of Tzeentch, sorry. Don't pronounce the T, do you? Yep, obviously you don't really take them on their own. You've got to have someone riding them. Flamers of Tzeentch, they sound good. Movement 9. Yep, I like the sound of that. They must be your fast hitters and heavy hitters by the looks of them as well. Strength 5, toughness 4, 2 wounds. Horrors of Tzeentch. As I spoke about before, the pink horrors, when you chop them down, turn into 2 blue horrors, which must be absolutely devastating for the enemy who's killing them when they double in number and don't really become that much easier to kill either, being toughness 3 still. So, yeah, I think they're going to be one of my favourites to paint up as well, with the bright pinks and the bright blues. There's not many models where you get to paint bright pink, is there? So that'll be fun. And then we're on to another little story there. Don't know who's behind that, but I'm sure it's very interesting. I'll have a read of that at some point. And then we're on to the Chaos Army list. And this is just explaining about what the restrictions are, how the regiments and the demons work, and the monsters and allies. Again, we'll have to have a look at that in more detail when I'm picking an actual army out to start painting. The equipment list, the obvious thing that the Chaos are missing is missile weapons, as they're not allowed any of these. That's what those stars indicate. However, there's that corn symbol again. They've reused that artwork well. It must have been popular in the studio, or certainly for Rick at the time when he was putting this book together. He obviously liked that one. Armour, I think Chaos Armour is the armour of choice for most of the Chaos Army. And they're not limited on most of the equipment for hand-to-hand weapons, so plenty of choice there. Army selection, so 50% characters, maximum, 25% minimum for the regiments, and then you can have up to half of your army as demons, a quarter of your army as monsters, and a quarter of your army as allies. So plenty to think about there. And then it's on to the list of units to pick your army out with, which I'll go over briefly, but we've already covered the bestiary or bestiary section, so this will be more for another video when I'm actually picking my army out. But you've got access to The Chaos Lord General, you can have, depending on the god, the mark of chaos that he's got, you can have different mounts there, and different bonuses depending on the mark of chaos. And you got Battle Standard, which I think is pretty much normal for every army of this era. Chaos Heroes, Chaos Champions. And then the list just goes ridiculous because you've got Beastmen Lords, Beastmen Heroes, Beastmen Champions, Minotaur Lords, Minotaur Heroes, Minotaur Champions. Look at the points cost for those though. 240 points for a hero, 380 points for a Lord. Can't imagine you'd be seeing too many of them about unless you're doing huge battles. And then you've got Dragon Ogre Lords, Heroes and Champions. Centaur Lords, Heroes and Champions. Chaos Sorcerers. So obviously just Khorne that doesn't have access to Chaos Sorcerers, but everybody else does. Beastmen have got their own in the Shamans. Again, a Shaman Lord, 336 points. So still not cheap, but maybe compared to a Sorcerer Lord for the Chaos Warriors, 356. Well, not much difference in it really. I wonder how they compare on the old stats. Again, we'll have a look at that when I'm picking out my army more specifically. The regiment section, so we've got the Chaos Knights, Chaos Warriors, the Beastmen, which I don't think I'll be picking in my initial force. Then you've got the Chaos Chariots, Chaos Hounds, the Chariots. I've got the newer style Chariots from later on in 5th edition that were released, rather than the original Chaos Chariots, but still great models, I think. Minotaurs and Harpies, which we've not heard any mention of yet. Dragon Ogres, Centaurs, Trolls, and then it's onto the Demon section where it's pretty much the same as we've been through all those in the previous section, so no need to really cover those again. You've got access to monsters, and I think they're pretty much all available to Chaos. Certainly got dragons, chimeras, and all the different swarms. Found swarms really good in this edition, actually. Well, 5th edition, actually, is what I've played, so I can't comment about 4th so much, but they were certainly very good in 5th edition. Although, for the Skaven, I used to get them discounted for the rat swarms. Maybe at 100 points each, they're not quite as overpowered as they are for the Skaven. But Manticore, that'd be good, wouldn't it, for a Chaos army? Very good. Special characters. So not a great deal of special characters in this edition, actually. You've got Count Mordred the Damned, who I believe is... what god is he? Is he perhaps Undivided? Or you can choose, maybe? Don't know. He has no mark of chaos, which god he served and why the chaos gods abandoned him are unknown. There you go, that answers that one. Then you've got Egrim Van Horseman, Dark Sorcerer of Chaos, who we haven't seen any pictures of in this book because he wasn't released yet, but look at the points cost for him. Over 1,000 points. Unbelievable. I don't have Egrim, unfortunately, as well, so if anyone's got an Egrim for sale out there for a decent price, then let me know. Arbor the Undefeated, who I do have, came missing a leg, so I had to buy a separate leg. Cost me about a tenner extra. Very unfortunate. I'm glad I've got him anyway. Acold Hellbrass, who's, I believe, a Tzeentch special character. Excuse me. Yep, looks good. I think he comes back to life, doesn't he? Very hard to kill. I remember people often complaining about how overpowered he was, so... Yep. I don't own him yet, but I'm sure I'll get hold of him at some point. Skylar, Spawn of Chaos, which I do own. I think perhaps I own the second version of him. Not sure. We'll see when I go through the boxes of Chaos that I've got. Yeah, he's Khorne. Michael, there's that symbol again. For about the 8th time. And then we've got a little bit of blurb here. Another little story. Again, I'll read that at a later date. And this being the reprinted version of this book, which I believe they reprinted a lot of these from 4th edition going into 5th edition. It does have the extra pages at the back, which include the Collecting the Chaos Army. Tells you a little bit there about how to get started with your first 1,000 points, and I'm hoping to sort of follow that actually. It does include Beastmen in there, but I'll perhaps just replace those 10 Beastmen with a few extra Chaos Warriors, rather than being limited to just what looks like 5 Chaos Warriors there. That's a sample army. Yep, I think it'd be quite fun to paint that up to start with, obviously omitting the Beastmen maybe, as I said, and replace them with some Chaos Warriors, or maybe a couple of extra Chaos Knights, or perhaps include a champion for the Chaos Warriors who don't seem to have one there, just a standard bearer and musician. But we'll have to see how the points work out for that and if it's still legal. So there's the example of a Chaos General, which I've got, and I will paint him up probably in the first couple of months of the challenge. And the Chaos Knights that he will accompany, again, I've got those. Missing a banner top, unfortunately, but hopefully I'll acquire one of them or make up a green stuff substitute. And yep, the 5 Chaos Warriors, which does include a champion in the picture, but doesn't include it in the sample army. So we'll see how that pans out. And then a bit there about expanding the army. Obviously 1,000 points of Chaos is not very much, so you really need at least 2,000 points, I think, to really be competitive with Chaos. Otherwise you're bound to be outnumbered and easily outplayed, I think. If you get charged in the flanks or in the rear, then you're likely to be losing, I think. So yeah, there's a little bit there about how to expand the army and where to go. Maybe add a couple of chariots or dragon ogres or minotaurs, it suggests. Beastman shaman. Yeah, and then it talks about the greater demons, maybe adding one of them. Very good. So finishing off then, we've got that brilliant army shot there of a probably, that looks like what, 3,000 points of Chaos at least, against probably 1,000 points of Empire. I think we know who's going to win that one. And that's it. So, thanks very much guys for joining me on this little look through the Chaos Army book. I'll do another little video soon, perhaps going through the White Dwarf articles from around the same era. I think it'd be quite nice actually to relive the time. This being, what, 1994 when this was released? So if we follow along on the White Dwarfs as the models get released, and perhaps paint those month by month as we go along for the Call of the Crown challenge, I think that might work quite well. But we'll see. So thanks again guys, thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.